What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the new Hunter exotic this season, the Star Eater Scales, and we'll be breaking down exactly what they do in PvE, and we'll be showing them off with multiple different supers, then most importantly with Tether, and by the end of the video you'll probably see why. You can definitely make the case that this might be the best PvE exotic armor piece ever in Destiny. It is that good. And before we get into breaking down all the good stuff about this exotic, a quick word about today's video sponsor. This video was sponsored by a return sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. If you don't know what Raid Shadow Legends is, it is the biggest mobile RPG in the US. And pretty much the gist of it is you unlock champions that you fight with in battles, and over time you rank them up and unlock gear for them that will increase their attack speed and things like that. And eventually, once you get strong enough, you can take them into the in-game content, such as dungeons. And one of my favorite parts about Raid is the fact that it lets me scratch that RPG itch that I love in video games from pretty much anywhere in the world. For example, my favorite champion is Kale, and the reason I like this champion the most is because he is a mage character with multiple AoE attacks and also one high damage single target attack, which allows me to take on pretty much every level in the game and take out the low tier enemies with the AoE, then have the high single target damage with his third attack. So you might be asking what is going on in May for Raid Shadow Legends. Well, this month we're releasing 11 amazing new champions. They're also releasing almost 200 brand new missions to complete with an exclusive legendary champion as your reward if you manage to finish them all. And that's not it, they're also adding 5 tough new levels to almost every single dungeon in the game, which is their in-game activities. Raid's constantly evolving and it's never been easier to get started, so what are you waiting for? Go to the video description, click on my links, and support my channel by downloading Raid today. Once again, thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. So looking at the exotic perk, the first part, you gain additional super energy from orbs of power you pick up. So just looking at this with Masterwork orbs, usually when you pick up a Masterwork orb, you get, a slight chunk of super energy. It's nothing crazy, right? And looking at that one more time, just a little bit. Then if we put on the exotic and do the same thing with Masterwork orbs, it's going to be noticeably a bigger chunk now, especially on the second one when I pick up. You can definitely tell how much more super you get. And we kind of zoom in on the frame that we pick up the orb. You can easily tell that it is pretty much double super per orb pickup, which is obviously quite a lot, and will add up very quickly the more and more orbs you pick up. And then the last part of exotic, when your super energy is full, picking up orbs of power overcharges your super, causing you to gain a burst of healing when cast and a bonus to your super damage. At maximum overcharge, you also gain an overshield. So looking at how this mechanic works, once you have your super already, you can pick up orbs still, and you'll get Feast of Light, and you'll get 1 stack per orb, and the cap will be ×4. And the one thing about this that is pretty crazy is there is no fall off on the perk. Once you have ×1, you have ×1 forever until you use your super. Same with ×2, ×3, and ×4. So it's very, very easy to get all the way up to ×4 before you use your super. And there is no time fall off, time restriction, anything like that to the perk at all. I've sat there for 5+ minutes and still have the perk. So it's extremely easy to get ×4 whenever you activate your super. So the first thing I want to test is the healing part. So with just 1 stack of Feast of Light, give myself red bar, then pop my super. And the healing I get is pretty much not noticeable. I mean, it barely moved. Now with ×2, it's at least kind of noticeable now, but still in no way anything to write home about. And with ×3, it's starting to get a little bit better, maybe like 33% of your health back. But finally with ×4, you get a full overshield on cast. And that overshield will last for 15 seconds or if it's broken, so that is actually pretty good. And now for testing the damage part, we're going to be using Bottom Tree Gunslinger for just the regular golden gun. We're not going to be taking count Knock Him Down, which is another buff on top of this. But just looking at the base damage of golden gun, it hits 51, 74, then 97,000. Now we have ×1 Feast of Light, pop our super. It's then go up to 58, 85, then 112. Then with ×2, doing the same thing. Now 66, 97, then 126. Then with ×3, I'm gonna go even higher to 74, 108. Then if Carl stands still, 141,000. And now finally with ×4, the max buff, 82, 119, then 155. So ×1 is 15%, ×2 30%, ×3 45, and eventually ×4 is 60% more damage for your super, which is quite a lot. So the question now is that better than Nighthawk? Obviously Nighthawk will take all the bullets into one and make it do a lot more damage, but is that better than Scales? So let's see, 307,000 damage from Nighthawk. And with the skills with ×4, we hit a total of 357,000. So the skills is 16.2% better than Nighthawk. And that is the first reason why this might be one of the best exotics of all time, because it's out-damaging an exotic that is meant for that subclass. And this is just a general super increase. And that isn't even the crazy part. The crazy part is the interaction with this exotic and Tether. So Tether, especially top tree, is just a debuff for you and your allies. But if we look at what happens if we pair that with this new exotic, it gets crazy very quickly. So pretty much looking at the base damage on Carl with this scout rifle, we usually hit for 3612. Now we just use a regular Tether. It should be a 30% debuff and go up to 4695. So that is that generic 30% debuff that almost all debuffs in the game are. But now we tether him with Feast of Light ×4. Once Carl finally looks up, I hit for 7,511 now, which is way higher. So this exotic is increasing the damage debuff of Tether by 60% all the way to a total of 108,000 debuff to any weapon in the game. The one catch of this is it's only to your damage. If your allies shoot the same target, it will still be the generic 30% debuff, which honestly is okay, because if it was 108% for your entire team, that would be pretty much the most broken thing in the history of Destiny. Because when you think about it, normally the highest buff and debuff you can get for your weapons is Weapons of Light, which is 35%, any debuff, which is 30%. Then you can also use Power of Rasputin, which is a 10% buff that also stacks with the two previous ones for a total of 93.05%. And that is pretty much the highest increase any weapon in the game can get. But then Bacchus came along, which added 2 more 10% buffs to that list. One for arc weapons, then another one for damage versus targets frozen or slowed. And that was only for yourself in a 10-second window after you rolled, and only versus, frozen slow targets, and only with arc weapons. So a bunch of ifs, right, for that. Now compared to the skills, you have Weapons Light, which is 35%, but now your debuff is 108%, and you still have Power of Rasputin, which is 10%, for a total of almost 209% increase to your weapon damage, which is 56.36% higher than the whole Bacchus combo. And this works for any weapon in the game, not just arc, not just versus slowed and frozen targets, just any weapon, any situation, 209% more damage. So we look at how that translates to a few examples. The highest burst DPS weapon in the game is the 4th Horseman, and with the Callus you can shoot 5 shots very, very quickly. And it's pretty hard to tell exactly what the DPS of this thing is, because there's so many numbers so quick, and it's very hard to hit the crits on every single shot. But just looking at it with ×4 of the Feast of Light, I mean, Carl's is dead. I mean, he doesn't even stand a chance. And just trying to estimate how much damage that was, Carl has roughly 240,000 health. And now if we just look at the rate of fire of the 4th Horseman, the one magazine, that's going to be roughly 0.651 seconds. Which means we can estimate the DPS of one mag of the 4th Horseman with a full combo to be well over 500,000 damage. And that is like on the low side. It's probably a little bit higher than that. Another thing we can look at is rocket launcher DPS. Most legendary and exotic rockets do roughly 90,000 burst DPS and roughly 70,000 sustained DPS. So with the full combo, that would go to almost 280,000 for the burst. Then for the sustained, it would still be, 216,000, not too much. So yeah, the way Tether works with this exotic is insane. It is so strong that it is pretty much the DPS meta instantly. And what I mean by that is for raids, for example, you pretty much just want one Titan for Weapons of Light, then the R5 people all doing this with Tether. That way they could provide themselves that 108% increase, because it only works for them, so they all have to do it themselves. But still, that would be completely worthwhile, because it is by far the highest damage buff you can give yourself in the entire game, and there is nothing that is even close. So that is the second reason why this might be the best exotic of all time, because it gives you the highest weapon damage buff possible, and it's not even close to what the next best option is. So now I'm testing if it works and how it works with a few different supers. First with Stasis. This time we're going to go over to a strike boss. First without the exotic, see how much damage it does. It's going to take for roughly 1279, that is the number you see most often. And by the time it's kind of over, you can kind of see how much health it took off, not that much at all. Now we do it with ×4 Feast of Light. You see the number that was taken before is now 2046, so that is, well, you guessed it, 60% more damage. And the health bar moves quite a bit more, so it does work with Stasis. And the next thing I want to test was Bottom Tree Tether with Mobius Quiver, and see if the skills were better than Orpheus Rig. And what Orpheus Rig does, it will give Mobius Quiver 2 more shots per use. So let's see if 2 more shots is better than 60% more damage. And as you see right here, here are the numbers with Orpheus Rig. As I mentioned, you can shoot 8 shots with this. Now going back to the skills with ×4 Feast of Light, the numbers will be quite a bit higher, but now you can only shoot 6 shots. So what is better? You know, more damage per shot but less shots, or a little bit less damage and more shots? And the total for both is Orpheus Rig was 476,000 and the skills were 515,000, so roughly 8.1% more damage overall, but you're also shooting 2 less shots, so the DPS would be a lot higher with these skills. So pretty much no matter what super I test, it obviously works and will increase the damage by 60%. And more importantly, it's also outdoing the exotics that are specifically built for that super. So for example, Nighthawk or Orpheus Rig, this general purpose exotic is outdoing them all, which is pretty much absolutely crazy. It's not just better than like one thing, it's straight up the best for all supers, all subclasses, tether, weapon damage. I mean, it's just the best at literally everything. I don't know what else to say. It's just crazy, insane, whatever word you want to put. Yeah, I think that might be it. I don't know what else I could really say about this exotic. I really do think you make the case that it might be one of the best PvE exotics of all time. I mean, it's just, yeah. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.